Module 1, Section 1, and this is specifically for objectives 1 and 2. We'll see the other objectives in a future video. So, whole numbers. To know what whole numbers are, we have to start with natural numbers. These are the counting numbers. So if you just want to tell somebody how many of something you have, you use the natural numbers. So remember, this dot, dot, dot means it goes on forever. And these little braces, that's what those are called. Hang on, these things that look like these little squiggles, those are called braces. And this particular one with two of them together, this is set notation. So this is the set of numbers that start with 1 and then they go forever, counting up. Okay? So then whole numbers, the difference between whole numbers and natural numbers is just 0. And I know that seems kind of strange, but that's all the difference there is. Whole numbers have a 0. Okay, you notice the braces again, so it's set notation, and the dot, dot, dot. So that means whole numbers start at 0 and they continue on forever, counting up. Our counting system is base 10. It may be because we have 10 fingers and they just started with that, but whatever it is, it's base 10. Okay, now these base 10 blocks can be used to represent our numbers. So starting with the smallest one here, the yellow one, that's just 1, right? But now this first green one here on the bottom is the same size as that yellow one, and then we're going to stack them on top of each other so that there are 10 of them. Okay, so we have 1 here, and we have 10 here. Now we're going to take this big green part and connect them together, so we have 10 of these going across. So 10 tens is going to be 100. Okay, now these blocks can be used to represent numbers so that you can see the magnitude or how big the numbers are just by looking at the blocks. It's kind of cool. Okay, so what number do these things represent? So we're going to start with the blue part because we have hundreds, right? The blue is hundreds. So we have 100. Now the greens are tens, so we have 2 tens. So 10 and 10 is 20. And then we have 4 singles. Okay, so we're going to add all of those up. And we have 124. So we have 124, right? Now this down here, we'll get to that later. This is called expanded form. Okay, so now the bottom one. How many hundreds do we have? 2. How many tens? 4. And how many ones? 2. So this number is 242. A different way of looking at it, we have 2 hundreds, 40, and 2. This is expanded form. So you add all of those up, and you get 242. Every number can be represented with these. It's just, first of all, they're going to get a lot bigger, and second of all, I don't know that you want to represent really the number 987 with these, because we'd want 9 of the blue parts, 8 of the green ones, and 7 of the yellow ones. That would take a lot of time and a lot of effort to actually make that work, wouldn't it? But it can be done. So if you want to do visual representations, that might really help. So I mentioned they get bigger, right? So what would the next bigger size look like? So if our ones were squares, little tiny ones, right? And then our next one were 10 squares. I'm going to put it on its side just because I have more space to write this way. Oh, I actually made it. I think that's 10. And then And then the great big one was the big square, right? And I'm not going to go any farther than that. So what comes next? If 10 of these make that, and 10 of these make this, the great big square, what do 10 of these look like? And there you go. It's a great big cube, isn't it? Yeah, theirs are backwards from what we had, but you still can see the connection. Okay, so these are the words that we're going to call them. So we have unit, rod, flat, and cube. Okay, now there's a website that has this that you can play with them digitally. So give me just a second and I'll write that for you. Okay, there's the website, and I'm sorry I can't link it in this program that I'm using, but you can go that way or go there and type it in. I'm also going to link it into Canvas, so all you have to do is click on the link and it'll take you there. And it has all 4 of these. Okay, so you can use a little bit bigger numbers. Okay, now I'm going to erase this. Let's find out. Hang on. Nah, I think we're going to leave it right there. Okay, so the units, these are the ones. The rods represent tens. The flat represents hundreds. And the cube is 10 hundreds or thousands, right? Okay, now the next one up would just, if you can see what's going on, you just add 1 0, 2 zeros, 3 zeros. So every time you times by 10, remember dot means times. So we're going to times 10 by 10, we get 100. You have 1 0 here, 1 0 here, and you end up with 2 zeros. So it's kind of a little trick there when you're multiplying by tens. So now when we're going from 10 or 100 times 10, there's 1, 2, 3 zeros, and we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. Now this is the one that you see in your packet, and it says you can model whole numbers with base 10 blocks. We've already done some of those, right? So how many do you see in that image, and what do the blocks represent? Okay, now when it asks you how many do you see, you are not counting this as 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, they want to know how many of these little teeny tiny blocks there are. Because if you remember, we talked about it before. This was 1. The rods were 10 each, right? And the flats were 100 each. And the big cube is 1,000. Okay, so how many of these little tiny cubes, these are base 10 blocks, that individually small one. How many of those little ones are there in that whole image? Okay, so we have 1 1,000, we have 3 100s, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 10s, and 3 1s, right? Okay, so let's write that out in expanded form, starting with the big one. So we have 1,000, and now 300s give you 300. 5 10s is 50, and 3 1s is 3. So we have 1,353. Okay, this says draw a picture to represent that number. Okay, that's going to be kind of interesting to draw because we were talking about those big numbers, right? And that 8's getting kind of big. But let's see what we can do. First of all, we need to break it down into the different categories. So we have 2 1s, right? We have 8 10s. We have 4 100s. And 3 thousands. So we have 3 cubes. And if this is a big cube, I don't know if you want to draw 3 of those, but we're supposed to, so let's do it. Okay, I'm not going to do all of the individual small blocks on each of the sides of this one. So there's 3. Hopefully your drawings are better than mine. 3,000, right? Okay. If you remember, each of these have 10 across, but we're not going to draw all those in, right? Okay. So what's next? The green part, that represents our flats. So we have just a flat. Now it's the same size as the side of the cube. That's why I drew it right next to it below, so I could make certain I had it the right size. And again, like I said, I hope yours are better than mine. So we want, and my program isn't letting me do this. There we go. Okay, so 4 of those. Now we have 8 10s. Now the rods, they can be horizontal, they can be vertical, as long as they are 10 units across. Okay, so there's 4. I'm going to do 4 more over here, just because I don't have too much space. Oh yeah. And little units. So they're right here, right? 2. And that's it. So we have 3,482. Okay, so now it says write an equation to represent the value, so that's where the expanded form comes in. So we have 3,000 plus 400 plus 80 plus 2. Okay, now this is an expression. And an expression is just a combination of numbers using add, subtract, multiply, and divide. That's it. To become an equation, it needs to be equal to something. Okay, so that's equal to 3,482. Okay, so draw a picture to represent that number. And we got a lot bigger, didn't we? So we have 12,840. Wow. Okay, so this 12, we don't have anything bigger than the cube, so I need 12 cubes, don't I? Okay, I'm going to kind of cheat on this one because I don't want to draw 12 of them, and I apologize. And I don't know if you would want to either. But, so here's one. Well, that's the wrong angle. That's going to drive me crazy. There we go. Okay, I have 12 of these. I know that's cheating. Okay, and I don't know if I have the colors the same as I did on the last page or not, but here we go. So we're going to do flats next. Whoops. Again, I am a little bit messy tonight, and I apologize. We have 8 of these. And I'll do the rods straight up and down on this one. How many of those do we have? 4. And units, the blue part, we don't have any, so I don't have to draw the little ones. Okay, so yes, that's cheating. Otherwise, I would have had to do 12 of these and 8 of those and 4 of those. Okay, so I'm fine if you do it like this. So write an equation that represents the value of the blocks. Okay, so the great big cube, those are thousands. Flats are hundreds. And the rods are tens. Okay, so now we're going to do 12,000 and then we're going to do 800 and 4 tens, which makes 40. Okay, and why do I have add in between here? Because all we're doing is counting how many of those little tiny units we have in those big shapes. So we just want to add them all together. We want a total. Okay, whoops. Can't draw with a pointer. There we go. So this is equal to, because remember we want an equation, 12,840. We'll talk about the comma here in a little bit, where it goes and why. And speaking of which, here is the page that has the commas in it. Okay, we talked about the stuff in this first paragraph, but let's go over it really fast. It's like you saw that each place in a number has a different value. Okay, so each place we'll talk about, because this is the place values down here. Okay, so the value of each place in the place value chart is 10 times the value of place to the right of it. And we talked about that in one of our charts that I showed you a minute ago. So a place value chart is useful to summarize this information. The place values are separated into groups of 3 called periods. The periods are ones, thousands, millions, billions, trillions, and you can keep going. And in a written number, commas separate those periods. Okay, so the number, da-da-da-da-da, is shown down here. There it is, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so we start with the 4 here on the very end, and we put it in the ones place. You'll hear that let's try that again. You'll hear it be called the units place sometimes too. Okay, so it goes in the ones place, and then you put one number in each column all the way across until you get your number done. And because 5 is in the millions place, this number is 5,200,078. Okay, but you don't say it that way. You say 278,000. You take that whole period together. So that's 278,194. Now you never say the ones when you're explaining what the number is. So it would have 5,278,194. Okay, we're going to do more of those. Okay, in this example, they have one number that's in bold and underlined, and they want you to find out what place value that is. Okay, if you want to use your place value chart, you can do that. So like this 54588. Okay, I'm going to take that back here. So 54,588. So we're starting here on the end that goes on the end in the ones, and then you put one number in each place. Notice the comma lined up. Okay, so this period right here is the thousands. So this is 54,588. Okay, so if we go over 1, 2, 3, 4 places, so 1, 2, 3, 4 places, it's in the thousands place, isn't it? So that's why they say 4 is in the thousands place. Okay, so the next one, 8. If you can remember without me going back, we have ones, tens, hundreds. So that's in the hundreds place. Okay, now the 1 in this next number that they have underlined, here's your ones period, your thousands period, and your millions period. So that 1 represents something in the millions. Now every one of the periods has 3 places. And we have the ones, the tens, and the hundreds in each period. So the second number is the tens. So this is going to be the 10 millions. Okay, now we need to get some down by ourselves here. So D, we're looking for the 7. All right, so since it's only 3 numbers, it's just the first period of numbers, so you can use the ones, tens, hundreds, because it will always repeat from one period to the next. So this is ones, tens, hundreds. So the 7 is in the tens place. Okay, the next one, here's our ones, here's our thousands, right? So this is the thousands period. And now in that period, we have 3 spaces. And in that space, it's this situation right here with the 3, right? So ones, tens, hundreds. So we have 9 is in the ones, 0 is in the tens, 8 is in the hundreds. So this is the 100 thousands. Okay, sorry for the messy writing. Okay, so the next one, it's in the thousands period again, but this time it's in the middle position, and the middle position is the tens. So this is going to be the 10 thousands. Okay, and sometimes you'll see those hyphenated so that you know that they're connected together. I'd like to do that so that you read it as 100 thousands instead of 100 thousands. It gets kind of confusing if you don't kind of slur them together. Okay, G, here we go. So these are the ones, thousands, millions. This is the billions period. Okay, B, by means 2, so it's the second millions category. Here's the first millions, here's the second millions. The 8 is in the trillions, so the third trillions category, or millions category, sorry. Okay, now in that period, 4 is in this first spot. It's in the hundreds place. So this is the 100 billions. Okay, if that's kind of confusing, we can do some more together. There are quite a few in your homework, so just choose a few extras to make certain you know what you're doing. Okay, here's a little different way of doing that, basically the same thing. Okay, except they give you one number. So like here's your number. And then they ask you about different digits in the same number. Okay, so what is a digit? It's the individual numbers. Okay, so this big number here is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 digits. Okay, so the 8 is right here. It's in the third period, so that's the millions. And it's in the ones place, so it's just 8. It's just millions. Okay, now the 9 is in that middle period, so that's thousands, the middle. So 1, 2, 3, it's in the middle, but it's the second, right? And it's the second place of the second period. So let's go back really fast. See the middle part right here. So that's tens. So that's going to be in the 10 thousands place. The 2 all the way out here. So here's ones, thousands, millions. And then it's the furthest one over, so this is the hundreds. So it's 100 millions. And the 7 is just in the ones place. That one's easy. Okay, now of course the one they give you is going to be a little bit harder, right? So you'll notice your number doesn't have any commas in it. So that's what we're going to do first. So we're going to start from the right over here where the ones place is and count 3 places. So we have the ones, tens, hundreds, comma, ones, tens, hundreds, comma, ones, tens, hundreds, comma. Okay, now that's a big mess, so let me get rid of it. Okay, so here we go. So 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma. All right, so where's the 7? It's in that second. Here's the first period, here's the second period, and it's in the first group, so that's the ones, right? So that's just going to be thousands. You could say the 1000s place, that's fine, but most people don't. Okay, so it's the thousands place. Okay, so the 6 all the way out here. Okay, so it's in the, there's the ones, or the units, thousands, millions, so that's in billions. And because it's the first place of it, it's just the billions place. Okay, and again, you could say 1 billions if you want. I don't know if Canvas would accept that though, so let's just stick with billions. Okay, the 0. Okay, right there's the 0. So it's in that second group. So here's the ones, that's in the thousands, and it's the middle space, so that's the tens. So this is the 10 thousands. Okay, and the very last one here, the 3. Now they wouldn't ask you to do this if they had 2 3s, you know what I mean? Okay, so the 3 is in the millions, because this is the ones, thousands, millions, and it's in the third position of the millions, so it's 100 millions. All right, there we go. Okay, so down here at the bottom, I don't know if this will help you or not, but here's your first period. You have your ones place, your tens place, and the hundreds place. And then your second period, ones, tens, and hundreds. Your third period, ones, tens, and hundreds. And if you had to go any higher, you would do ones, tens, and hundreds, and you just keep going in that same pattern. Okay, so this first group is the ones. The second group, well, the period is thousands. The third period is the millions. Okay, so that is, whoop, there it went. That's what that chart means. And now that you've seen it a few times, maybe it makes more sense to you. Okay, now they're doing that exactly backwards. So they give you the place and they want you to find the number in it. Okay, so the 100 millions place. So you need to understand what we just talked about. And let's see, so if this is 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3. It's bigger than what we need because this thing is only 9, right? Okay, so this first is the ones. The second is the thousands. Third is the millions. Whoa, that was messy. And this last one is the billions, although we're not going to need it. Okay, so I'm just going to put that number in there, starting with the ones place, because it always needs to line up over on the right. Okay, so maybe if you did this, made a little chart for yourself and placed it in there, it would be really easy for you. Because the 1 now, you can see it's in the third space of the millions, so it's 100 millions. And the 3 right here is in the middle space, so that's the 10 thousands. The 4, and I lied, look at this. I said they wouldn't do it and they have 2 numbers, but they do. They have 2 4s. So we're going to look and see which one they're talking about. Okay, so they're talking about this one. So let's just change that to a 5 so that we don't get confused. Okay. All right, so if that's a 4 right there, it's in the millions place. It's in the ones place in the millions period, so you don't say ones. And then the 8 right here is just in your tens place. And here's the one for you to do, which, again, doesn't have commas in it. So let's get them in there. Okay. I'm going to actually rewrite the number because last time I put the commas in, it was pretty small. Okay, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But now I'm going to rewrite it. Now, if you do rewrite, make certain you're getting the number correct, because if you write it wrong, that's your fault. You know what I mean? So just double check, especially when you have these big numbers. Okay, I'm going to use my written one instead. Okay, so here's our first period, which is ones. Second period, which is thousands. And we have millions and billions. And in each one of these, this is 1, 10, 100. 1, 10, 100. 1, 10, whoops, got carried away there. 100, 1. Okay, so hundreds place. Hundreds, it's not 100 billion, 100 million, 100,000, it's just hundreds. So it's right there, it's the 8. Okay, the billions place, all the way up here. It's not 10 billions or 100 billions, it's just the billions place, so that's going to be the 5. Okay, 10 millions, let's find a different color here. Alright, so 10 millions. So we know it's in the millions category, and it's in the tens place, so that's the 3. Our number's getting a mess. See why I wanted to write it bigger? Okay, and the last one, 100 thousands. So it's in the thousands place, and the 100 spot of the thousands period, so it's going to be the 4. Okay, that covered section 1, objectives 1 and 2, so we'll see you for the next video.